The Diamond and Pearl anime is still my favorite Pokemon series to this day, and I'm sure a lot of people share the same sentiment with me. But there's always been one thing that irked me. Well, aside from him, and that is Ambipom's abrupt release. To keep it brief, Dawn basically gives up Ambipom when she develops an interest in ping pong, even though she was always interested in contests. I truly believe that this release is one of, if not the worst release in the entirety of the Pokemon anime. Yes, even worse than Greninja's release. It is, in my opinion, the definition of character assassination. I'm Guardian Angel, and in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why Ambipom's release was so unwarranted and undeserved. And more importantly, I want to share some theories I have on why the writers might have made this baffling choice. Because let's be honest, this came out of left field, especially for a Pokemon that had so much history up to this point. But to understand why it stings so much, we need to rewind all the way back to the Advanced Generation series when Ambipom was still just an Aipom. We first meet Aipom in the Battle Frontier episode Slacking Kong, where she's seen worshipping a Slacking, which, as it turns out, is actually a robot created by Team Rocket. During this episode, Ash and Aipom bond when he saves her from falling. Aipom also steals Ash's hat, her unique way of showing affection, which essentially becomes a recurring gag. From there, Aipom starts following Ash on his journey, eventually making a reappearance at May's Kanto Grand Festival. During the episodes, we see her watching May's battle against Harley and her battle against Drew, clearly mesmerized and developing an active interest in Pokemon contests. It's in the episode Channeling the Battle Zone that Ash finally catches her, officially making her part of the team. Now, let's pause for a moment and think about this. It's clear that Ash was always going to catch Aipom eventually, but Ash doesn't really participate in contests. So why did the writers choose Aipom to show a strong interest in them? You might say, well, Ash did enter a contest in the Battle Frontier season, and that's true, but he used Pikachu and Sceptile, not Aipom. It wasn't until Diamond and Pearl that Ash actually used Aipom in an official contest. So here's another question. If Aipom was interested in contests, why didn't the writers have May catch her? That would have made more sense, right? Well, we know Aipom evolves into Ambipom, a Generation 4 Pokemon, which would tie directly into promoting the Diamond and Pearl series and games. This becomes especially clear when Aipom eventually joins Ash's team in Sinnoh, which makes you wonder, did the writers already plan for Aipom to eventually become Dawn's Pokemon? I wouldn't put it past them. After all, there were only a few episodes left between when Ash caught Aipom and the start of Diamond and Pearl, and by then some Generation 4 Pokemon were already being promoted. Then you might be thinking, Aipom doesn't become Dawn's Pokemon until a little later into the Diamond and Pearl series, so the writers must have thought of the trade somewhere in the midpoint of the series. Well, in Diamond Pearl, Ash finally enters Aipom in an official contest after Dawn and Brock sees how much she's invested in them. In the episode Arrival of a Rival, after losing a contest battle to Zoe, Zoe says this.
Hey, get this! Ash entered the contest because Aipom wanted to take a shot.
Aipom? That's the truth, all right. I know what to do. Dawn, you raise Aipom. Huh?
And this is only 12 episodes into Diamond and Pearl, by the way. Aipom then enters another unofficial contest, but not with Ash. She actually competes with Jessie. And I find this episode ironic because there's a whole scene where Ash is seen freaking out, paranoid that she might leave Ash.
Aipom sure looks happy. What if Aipom leaves? Aipom, don't go! But Aipom, why?
And yeah. After what became of Ambipom later, this is basically unintentional foreshadowing. At some point through Diamond and Pearl, Dawn catches a Weasel, and it quickly becomes clear that their battling styles are very different. Weasel is incredibly powerful and almost obsessed with training. In the episode An Elite Meet and Greet, Weasel shows a strong passion for battling as the gang watches a televised match between Lucian and another trainer. And after meeting Lucian and hearing him yap about the Champion League, Weasel boldly challenges him to a battle. It's almost as if Weasel is meant to be with someone else. Even though Weasel develops a bond with Dawn and even participates in some of her contest training, like when Dawn's trying to perfect Ice Aqua Jet, he's always shown a stronger interest in Ash's style of battling. Eventually in the episode Throwing the Track Switch, Dawn decides to trade Weasel for Aipom after Zoe once again suggests that Aipom would be a better fit for her. Ambipom pretty much became a staple part of Dawn's team and even fought in a gym battle against Maylene's Venetite and won because of her experience battling when she was with Ash. She was also the inspiration for Counter Shield during Dawn's contest battle against Lila, which would then be used by Ash later against his gym battle against Fantina. Ambipom's eventual passion for ping pong is, well, interesting to say the least. The ping pong tournament is first mentioned by Barry in the episode Stopped in the Name of Love.
The deal is Kenny's going to enter the contest, and then I'll enter Pokemon Ping Pong for a double win. We're gonna do some special training.
Pokemon ping pong?
You don't know what that is? Let me see if I've got it. Yeah, here. You see, they're holding ping pong after the contest, and all the strongest competitors are going to be there.
And in the very next episode, Old Rival New Tricks, the whole gang, including Dawn and Ambipom, is shown preparing for the tournament. Dawn even incorporates ping pong strategies with Ambipom during a contest, using her tails to hit the stars in the performance round, and again when Ambipom battles Kenny's Prinplup. The very next episode is the dreaded release. Sometime during the episode, this random ping pong trainer named O offers to train Ambipom after being impressed with her skills in the tournament. Dawn is unsure of what to do and turns to Ash and Brock for advice, and Ash tells her that she should let Ambipom decide what she wants to do.
I still don't know what to do. Earlier today, the guy named O I played against made me an offer to train with Ambipom and make Ambipom a powerful Pokemon ping pong player, see?
Of course. Ambipom was super amazing out there today.
What would you do if you were me, Ash?
What's important is what Ambipom wants to do.
But there's a choice the trainer needs to make between what a Pokemon wants and what's best for them. Part of your responsibility, see?
Listen, I will always dislike this episode, but I can never hate this moment. But we all do know the end result. Dawn ultimately lets Ambipom decide what she wants to do, and Ambipom ends up choosing ping pong. I'm sorry, but this makes no sense. I get that Ambipom developed a new interest in ping pong, and sure, Pokemon can have multiple passions or multiple interests, but to have her give up contests, something she had shown interest in ever since as early as the Battle of Frontier episodes for ping pong, a hobby she only explored for 2 episodes, it feels very rushed and completely out of character. All that build up, the trade between Ash and Dawn, and for what? For Ambipom to eventually never be seen again? It feels dirty and disrespectful. You can't convince me that Ambipom's release was planned from the beginning. What makes Ambipom's release even worse is that she lost her last contest battle in a previous episode. So she didn't even leave on a good note.
Plus, remember, Ambipom is the sweet and precious friend I traded from Ash a while back. So I'm gonna win tomorrow's tournament for Ash as well.
Also, take a guess on how many contests Ambipom won when she was with Dawn. 3, 2, wrong.
No, wrong.
Ambipom only won 1 contest with Dawn, and that was the contest battle against Lila. She was also used in the Wallace Cup, but just for the performance round. But still, I'm sure the writers never intended this to happen. In fact, I'm quite positive that she was meant to be battling alongside one of Dawn's other Pokemon in the Grand Festival against Zoe.
So it was just like Zoe said. Right, Aipom? You and Dawn are meant to end up at the Grand Festival.
Imagine how poetic this would have been. Zoe was the one who originally suggested for Dawn to raise Ambipom. It would have been a full circle moment. But no, Ambipom was basically wiped away from existence. So why did this happen? Why did the writers eventually have Ambipom leave the group, especially after all the development, after all the build-up, and especially after the trade between Ash and Dawn? Is it just bad writing? Unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get a clear-cut answer. So that's why I have some theories on why this happened. But I do believe it goes beyond just quote-unquote bad writing. Please bear with me, as these are just theories that I have after observing some things and may or may not be true. In fact, if you have some theories of your own, please feel free to leave some of them in the comments. My first theory on why this happened is that Ambipom just isn't a very popular Pokemon within the community. Let's take a look at Dawn's team. It's basically a lineup of cute, strong, and highly regarded Pokemon. Now, I wasn't online much during the Gen 4 era, but from the general consensus I've seen about Ambipom online, Ambipom never quite reached the same level of popularity or fan love as the rest of her team, like Piplup or Baneri for example. The anime's main purpose is to promote the current generation of Pokemon as much as possible through its main characters. Considering Dawn and her Pokemon were very popular back then, both in Japan and the United States, I believe some executives wanted to push Dawn's popularity even further. Unfortunately, that might have meant writing out Ambipom in favor of Pokemon that resonated more strongly with fans. Again, I have no evidence of this even after scouring the internet forums back then that might have suggested this. My second theory ties in a bit with my first theory, and that is the promotion of Johto remakes. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver were released in Japan on September 12, 2009. To promote these games, Dawn ends up getting an egg which hatches into a Cyndaquil in the episode An Egg Scramble. This episode aired as a 1-hour special in Japan on September 17, 2009, just 5 days after the release of the Johto remakes. The episode in which Ambipom was released to Die Known Pokemon Be True aired in Japan on April 23, 2009, about 4 months before the Johto remakes were released. This raises a big question. Did the writers intentionally write off Ambipom to free up a team slot for Cyndaquil, knowing that a starter Pokemon would not only be more popular for Dawn's team, but also be good promotion for the Johto remakes? Again, I have no confirmation of this, but with just a 4-month gap between Ambipom's release and the Johto remakes, it honestly does feel like an executive really wanted to push for the promotion of Johto remakes. And that might have meant making some cuts, which could have included saying goodbye to Ambipom. Another part that stings, at least for me personally, is that there was an opportunity to bring Ambipom back. In Ambipom's release episode, O mentions that his ping pong training center is in Vermilion City in Kanto. Sound familiar? That's because it's also where Ash and Go's base of operations, the Cerise Research Laboratory, is. But if we're speaking realistically, this is purely coincidental. I doubt the writers even remembered this specific detail from a character of the day 15 years ago. For curiosity reasons, I also looked into the writer who wrote the release episode, and it was written by Junki Takigami, who has written Pokemon episodes as early as the original series. In fact, his first written episode was Showdown in Pewter City. If we were to look at Aipom's episodes in the Advanced Generation series, specifically the episodes where Aipom developed an interest in contests and when Ash caught her, those episodes were written by, and I'm sorry if I butchered this name, Atsuhiro Tomoika. If that name sounds familiar, he was basically the head writer for Diamond and Pearl. For those that don't know, he wrote majority of the plot-related and character development episodes, and yes, this includes majority of Ash and Paul's rivalry. He also wrote the episode where Ash enters Aipom in a contest, the trade between Ash and Dawn, every episode of the Wallace Cup arc, some of Ash's gym battles in Sinnoh, some of Dawn's contests, Ash and Paul's battle at the Sinnoh League, and the Grand Festival. So yeah, the episodes that involved Ambipom's entire journey, from Ash catching her to Dawn eventually raising her, were written by Tomoika for the most part. In other words, the majority of Ambipom's entire journey was largely shaped by Tomoika's writing. However, Ambipom's release was written by a different writer entirely. Could that have been a factor? Hard to say. Interestingly enough, the episode right before her release, Old Rivals New Tricks, was written by Tomoika. You would think he would have written Ambipom's release episode as well, especially given the direct continuity and how involved he was in Ambipom's journey. But honestly, I have a feeling he wouldn't have been in favor of writing her off in the first place. But at the end of the day, it's hard to reach a concrete conclusion. None of us truly knows what happens behind the scenes in a writer's room, or how certain creative decisions are made. And just to be clear, this is not meant as a jab at the writer who actually handled the release episode. They were likely working within directions already handed down to them. Tomoika is not the only writer for Diamond and Pearl after all.
So that means seems you want to play Pokemon Ping Pong, right?
Ambipom's release will forever leave a sour taste in my mouth. So why was Ambipom released? Honestly, there is no solid evidence out there to give us a concrete answer, and all we can do is really speculate. It could be a number of reasons, including the theories I've already previously mentioned, or another theory entirely that I never even thought of. But what do you guys think? Why do you think Ambipom was released? Feel free to let me know. This is my first time ever making a video like this, so I hope you guys liked it. Feel free to follow me on my socials, and see you next time.